Hello, thanks for tuning in. My name is River Kerstetter. I'm an instructor at the Chicago Center for Arts and Technology, and I'm here today with some of my colleagues at ChiCat to talk a little bit about what we do in our youth program at ChiCat and how we integrate sustainability studies into our programming. So, like I said, my name is River. For those of you who don't know about ChiCat already, we are a nonprofit that provides no-cost arts and technology training to youth as well as adults. So our mission is to educate and inspire youth through free arts and technology programs. We're going to talk a little bit more about our youth programs today. We also have adult programs that are focused on job readiness. And our goal is to elevate the talents of our community through transformative art studios, industry-driven vocational training, and a beautiful space to unify the communities that we serve. We are just north of Pilsen. We are at the intersection of Paulina and 13th. Our address is up on the screen. And if you want to learn more about what we do, if you have any questions about what we talk about today, you can always visit us and learn more at chicat.org. So again, thanks for tuning in. My name is River. I'm here today with BJ Allen, our digital arts instructor, as well as Matt Wilson, our Maker Lab instructor.
Happy to be here.
Good.
Me too.
Good. It's good to hang out with y'all. So today we're really going to talk about how we integrate sustainability into our art classrooms, right? So to start us off, I want to talk about what does that mean, sustainability. So sustainability can be defined as meeting the needs of the present while still making sure the needs of future generations can also be met. So sustainability is often broken down into three main areas that it applies to: environmental sustainability, economic justice, and social justice, or planet, profit, and people for short. So while this way of thinking about social, economic, and environmental sustainability is relatively new in national politics and on a higher level conversation, it actually people have been thinking this way and doing things this way forever, and it especially is related to many of the ways that indigenous peoples, such as the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe peoples here in Chicago, have taken care of the land and each other for generations and generations. So how does this relate to what we do at ChiCat? Well, the three of us believe that integrating sustainability into our arts youth programming can create opportunities to talk about more than just art, to talk about social good, to talk about the environment, to talk about justice. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about more today. So, starting off, I will pass it on to BJ.
Yay. Hi, everybody. Yes, I am BJ Allen. Thank you, River. I'm BJ Allen. I am the digital arts instructor at ChiCat. And what I'm going to talk about, first I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro to the Digital Art Studio, just a brief intro, and then we're going to talk a little bit about a program that we had this summer that incorporated sustainability heavily into the curriculum, and that is a class called Farm to Future. But before we go there, I would like to show you a little bit about the Digital Art Studio. This is our beautiful studio, the view of the skyline. We do, in the Digital Arts Lab, we have three different labs. The Digital Arts has Max with Adobe Creative Suite on all the Macs. We also do photography, we do sound, we do video, we do graphic design, animation, just about anything that can run through the computer and that you would think of as digital arts. So that's the Digital Art Studio. And it's really kind of teaching these kinds of classes really kind of a no-brainer. Like, students love to come and work on art at ChiCat regardless. It's not a hard sell. But our aim is to be transformative at ChiCat. We're not just having students come to our studios and learning a skill and that's it. That's not it. That's only a part of it, because we want them to become empowered. We want them to become involved in the community. We want them to understand the breadth of everything they touch in their lives through art. All of us are interdisciplinary artists. We also have many interests, scholarly interests that go beyond, or maybe not go beyond is the right way to say it, that intertwine with our art practices.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about this Farm to Future class that we taught this summer. So, here's another slide of the Digital Art Studio. We really are so lucky to have so much wonderful equipment to use in our studios. So the class that we taught this summer was called Farm to Future, and it's the bottom one on that list there. We taught 3 courses over the summer that met for 6 weeks total, and then went to each different lab for each class. So the Farm to Future class started out in my lab, in the Digital Arts lab, and then moved to Matt's lab, which the 3D Maker lab, which he'll tell you about in a minute, and then to Rivers. So in the Farm to Future class, we studied sustainability and urban farming, and in my lab, through the lens of photojournalism. So the students learned photojournalism and camera use, but they also learned about media bias, which is really important nowadays, especially. How do you evaluate a source? How do you become part of the dialogue? How do you identify your own bias? Who's the funder? All these things are very important and not something that high schoolers are often confronted with. We also learned about plant science, so that was another angle that created kind of a STEAM curriculum. We grew plants from seed in that we started in that studio, and then Matt and Rivers' classes made planters for them, and also furthered the discussion of sustainability. We took field trips to urban farms, and then our final project was a captioned photojournalist image. So, let's see. So, yes, 2 weeks in the digital lab, 2 weeks in the maker lab, 2 weeks in the design lab. That was the Farm to Future course. So, in putting together this curriculum, I needed a starting point, so I started with the documentary called Dirt. And from that, and to find a documentary about sustainability and urban farming wasn't the easiest thing to do, to find one that had a lot of representation in it from diverse cultures. Most of the documentaries I found about sustainability, at any rate, were mostly by and in front of the camera were white people. That's not who our students. Wasn't appropriate for our students. I wanted to find voices that came from more than just a community of
something that reflected the students we serve.
Thank you. So, okay, we can go back to the web now. So we watched the movie Dirt, which was really great and showing all over the world how important dirt and plants and farming, how all of that throughout the globe was manifesting. And then from there, that we had the students do short presentations on all kinds of different things. And the students generated these topics from watching the movie. So we talked about parts of the plant. We talked about soil composition. We also talked about different aspects of urban farming in Chicago, growing season, community gardening, all kinds of interesting things. And we brought it out to a global level. We're talking about the dead zone down in the Gulf of Mexico, monoculture, agribusiness, all these things all these topics they generated on their own. And here's an example of their presentation. This was, a two-week section in my class. I didn't have them do extremely in-depth presentations, but it was enough to get everybody thinking, and everybody thinking in an interdisciplinary way. All of those topics work together, but they covered politics, economics, science, art, a whole bunch of stuff. So then we went out to Taylor Street Farms, which is very close to Chi-Cat, and the students got a tour of the gardens, and they were taking pictures the whole time. They were engaged. They weren't just listening to someone lecture at them, and this was the fun part of doing this work through the lens of photojournalism. So Sally, I really appreciated her, got the students tasting I think some of them did, tasting and smelling the plants. This was a very engaging experience, so much better than sitting in a classroom learning about urban farming or sustainability. So here you see a student who was taking photos of the flowers here. We went to another farm, the Ogden, what's it called? Farm on Ogden. And this is an amazing place in Chicago that does hydroponics. You can see the tanks here where they have fish inside creating fertilizer for their plants. So the students were learning about that by going to the location and then and photographing it. And when you photograph something, you develop a relationship with it. You're engaged, you're involved, you're there, you're putting something in the foreground versus something in the background. All the students really loved using photography as a way to learn about something. So we came up with some excellent photos of the hydroponics, the aquaponics that they're using there. This is an example of one of the photos that the students submitted for the final exhibition. And here we have another one again. Let's see. Yeah. So then after all of this, after they went through taking pictures, then they went on to Matt's lab and to River's lab. And in those labs, they made planters. I'm going to wrap this up real quick here. But what they did... Whoops. Oh, here we go. My bad. In Math's lab, they made 3D printed planters. So, of course, in addition to learning, why you need a planter and how you make one, they learned 3D modeling and 3D printing and got to decorate them according to how they wished. And then when they went to River's class, they made planters from recycled materials and used wine bottles and cans, all kinds of stuff to make these planters. So at the end, the students, were asking me all kinds of things, like, can they make a garden at school? So I found a resource for that, and asking me all kinds of questions about cameras and what have you. So the benefits for this was that all of their senses were engaged. They learned a lot of skills. They learned about, across art, gardening, recycling. They learned about a lot of science, and they got involved in their community, and they learned about the politics and the practicalities of growing food. And I swear that this approach really gave them an in-depth view into sustainability that they wouldn't have gotten just reading about it in a magazine.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes, and it was very intertwined, which is something we share in our practices in education, but also something we model and teach and expect from our students. It was a very well-developed course. I'm happy that we did it.
Me too.
So thank you, BJ. So Matt, do you want to talk a little bit more about your studio and kind of what you do.
Great. Thank you so much. Great presentation, BJ. My name is Matthew Wilson. I'm the Maker Lab instructor. So I teach a lot of new school media that might not have been here 20, 30 years ago. Sometimes it's 3D modeling, sometimes it's 3D printing. We'll be getting into that, and I'll have some accompanying slides to go over my points. So River, if you could be so kind to swap it on over. So this is an example of Maker Lab. The big question I always get is, what is a Maker Lab? Maker Labs, maker spaces, hacker spaces, they're collaborative, open, and often community accessible spaces where people can use a variety of tools and materials to work on projects. Sometimes they're big, as in the example, and sometimes they're small, like this example. And sometimes they have more 3D printers and CNC, sometimes are more vinyl than electronics. The content changes, but the goal stays the same: to share information, to share projects, and use what you have to create solutions. And this is an example of a 3D printer. We have a ShyCat Lowesbot TAS 6, very awesome. And this is an example of some Arduino. This is not me specifically, but we do have this equipment. I had to get a picture in there. So this is an example of what Maker Labs can do, right? This is how 3D printers can be used to make precise components to big machinery. This is specifically a farmer in Britain who uses 3D printed gears, joints, etc. on top of his machines while he's farming around his fields. So they can be shared to people. Your designs can be shared all over. Your solutions can be shared all over, and people can create what they need and eliminate wasting materials on things that they don't need or don't want to use. But that gets into the bigger discussion. What is the environmental impact? Makerspaces need materials. Makerspaces need electronics, filament, etc., etc. The point is to make sure that you teach people in your space to be focused on creating what they need, focused on reusing things that can be repurposed, upcycled, swagged out for something new and awesome that you're working on in your studios. That's the most important part about using the materials. This is a close-up shot of grains of filament before they get mixed into material. And that's just something that I do want to get further in depth about. Since filament is so important, people want to 3D print, they want to make a rocket, they want to make a little sculpture of River and BJ, they want to do really whatever they can. You do not want to be irresponsible. So I'll quickly go off on the history of filament. Filament is a plastic. It's plastic that usually is based on ABS. ABS is a petroleum-based product. We know ABS because it's in Legos, it's in bicycle helmets, it's in a majority of the toys and household objects that we use on a daily basis. But ABS, to make it, they use injection molding. When heated to be used in an injection molding process, ABS releases 3 carcinogenics. That is just floating all over the place. And ABS became the plastic used in a majority of injection molding processes around 1940, 1950. That was, following World War II, getting everybody into economic boom, people come back working the jobs, boom, 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 they want materials. The most recent development in 3D printing is moving away from that petroleum-based product. So if we could hit back to the slides, these are what granules of this filament looks like, right? Instead of just taking petroleum-based products or leaving a whole bunch of waste overlap from industrial processes, we've switched from relying on this injection molding petroleum-based to relying on PLA, which is most often made from corn and sugarcane. 9 times out of 10 is going to be made off of corn. It's plant-based, it's biodegradable, but as you can see in the comparison between ABS and PLA, you can render the same results. What are the benefits beyond being plant-based and biodegradable? The benefits are that it does not release toxic fumes like ABS does. The benefits are that you can actually get the same looks that ABS can, and you can get the same parts in similar similar structural integrity. But the part that I'm most interested about is that PLA is flexible. It's a little bit of a chameleon. PLA can have multiple things mixed into it. So a lot of leftover industrial waste. This can be metal powders. This could be leftover
Really?
from coffee production. I'm not that informed on the production of coffee. Let's just call it leftover coffee, right? Multiple things can be mixed in. There's algae filament, coffee filament, wood filament. It goes on and on. You just have to be willing to think from a critical design lens to say, what can we do with these materials? So if we could get back to some of the content, there's a variety of things that we can make. So if people want to start to create solutions for themselves, instead of wasting, oh, I don't like this pair, I don't like that pair, people can 3D model and print their own glasses with something, right? That's something people use. Some of the people we know have glasses. If there's some projects that fail, there are filament remixers. Different companies will call them different things. Sometimes they're reheaters, remixers, filaments, recycle, Every company has their own thing. Basically,
That's what this is? It's
Yes.
recycling the filament
Yes,
in that little toaster oven?
yes, that is a great way to think about it. You can, if you 3D print a picture of a panda and you don't like it, melt that panda. You can print a cast. You can do a variety of things. You can make hooks for a skateboard. There's a lot of daily solutions that you can use. And you can even design lamps in here. But the best thing about Maker Labs is that they're social. You can get on Instructables or Thingiverse or even use open source software like Blender, which is available for free, and be able to learn, create, and make in your own space with whatever capacity you have.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, we've heard how Matt and BJ talk about sustainability in your classrooms. I teach in the Design Arts Lab. So in this lab, we do more traditional arts. So that's painting, drawing, printmaking, fashion studies, fiber arts, things in that realm of art. And there are a number of ways, some that overlap with y'all's classrooms, that we think about sustainability in my classroom. So, the first way is materials. Matt, you talked a little bit about PLA. In the design arts setting, the way that I think about reusable materials is, like BJ mentioned, we use some recycled materials and kind of upcycled things in our summer programs. But we also I try to reuse as much as we can. So like these are some of the planters from coffee cans and wine bottles that we made this summer. And this is some signage in my studio. So in sustainability, we sometimes think about systems in terms of whether it's a closed system, whether things are being kind of drawn back into the system instead of going to waste. So in our classroom, I try to reuse things as much as possible. So like this sign on the left says blue shop towels are reusable. We use a really heavy duty paper towel that can be used a couple times when we're cleaning to reduce waste. I try to save as much scrap paper, scrap cardboard, scrap poster board, fabric, string, anything that can be reused. I try to reuse it and have designated places for it in the classroom that make it more visible and kind of make it normal to be reusing in the classroom. And another way, or kind of a more recent way that I've been thinking about sustainability in the classroom, is through connecting our practice to sustainability. Right now, my high school class is a natural dye class, and this has been a really great opportunity to talk about local plants, to talk about the chemistry of natural dye, as well as visiting local farms to gather materials, and just a really good opportunity to talk about how we can use what we have around us in the arts and how that can connect to things like agriculture, sustainability, things like that. So, yeah, thank you again, y'all, for joining me today and talking about what we do at ShyCat to integrate sustainability in the arts. Again, for everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in. You can always reach out to us, learn more at our website, which is www.shycat.org, and have a great day. Thank you.